Hi, I'm Luann with Rockin Book Reviews, and I'm here today with Fred Kresbach. Fred, you were raised in Iowa. Share some of the childhood experiences you had there.
Well, I was raised as a farm. I was a farm kid, and grew up on a dairy farm, and um, graduated from a local high school in northern Iowa, north central Iowa, and then from there I went to a technical school in Des Moines, Iowa, electronic school, and then that's where. And after that, after vocational school, I was drafted.
Most of the time you were going to school, you worked long hours, right?
Yeah, I did. I went to school. Pretty much I was on my own. I went to school for 4 hours straight, and then I worked 8 hour shift at Pepsi Cola, and um, had to pay my rent, paid my tuition, and actually lived in a boarding kind of house, and we didn't have a television, we didn't have a telephone, and so I really didn't. Have a chance to keep up on any news or what was happening with anything that had to do with Vietnam. So I put in a lot of
I was
hours with
wondering
my
how you
school.
could avoid knowing about the war, like with all the media, but you didn't have your own television.
Didn't, and a lot of the guys and a lot of the guys I went to school with and associated with, it wasn't a general topic of discussion, and it was just something that would every once in a while would float around, but we nobody knew anything about it or what was happening over there, and and the guys that came home, we didn't know anybody. I had a few high school buddies that were over already, but they just went on their way, so nobody really had any information about Vietnam.
So when you went to boot camp, were you expecting any of that?
Um, well, no, I wasn't. I was, well, as I wrote in the book, I was hoping to, we were going to have 1 month just having to do with job interviews, and nobody would talk to me because they said, well, they told about 15 of us guys you're going to be drafted, and so that was the first. I said, well, and then I checked with my draft board, and they say, yeah, we know exactly when you're getting out and when you're going to get your notice, and this is when you expect to start. So, so that's kind of where it started out. And to tell you the truth, Luann, I was hoping that my school would have something to do with help, but it didn't happen that way. They needed bodies for Vietnam, and I went through. They sent me to Fort Polk, and from there I went to from basic to advanced infantry training. It was a shock.
In December of 1968, you went into the Army, and
Yeah,
so it was no surprise that you were
yeah.
going there.
I checked with the Selective Service Board, and I had a neighbor that was in on it, and he said, well, he said, yeah, he said you're going to get your notice the first week of January. And then he's the one that said, well, if you actually go in a draft right now in December, he said you're not gonna do anything till January anyway, and you'll have a month out of the way. So I started my basic training on it was January 5th or 6th of 1969. So
Fun times, huh?
yeah, yeah, it was, but I was prepared. I mean, I was prepared. I had it ahead of. I mean, I had it. Avoiding the draft was not an option for me. I knew if I was called up, I was gonna serve. I knew what I was in for to go through. Not to know exactly what the procedure going through, obviously basic training, but I knew it was a 10-week program, and I said, well, it's just a mindset. I'm going to go through it. And then I went through infantry training, and I said, well, I just got to get through it. If I make it out, alive, whatever, I put it behind me and try to move on. But I was preparing myself. I knew what I was. I was not going to avoid the draft.
That's good. Okay, you were awarded several medals and awards, and there's four of which I'm not familiar with. What are the Vietnam campaign medals?
Those are well, like we had our conversation before. That kind of came about when I went in from the correct my name on my DD 214, and then they send you the DD 215 associated with that, and then here they were on there, and so that was the first of my knowledge of them. But what they really are, they're more uh, um, brigade type of an award, not so much an army um, medal or anything. So what it was if they had a 2 month or 3 month campaign in a certain area, it would be and I was in the Third Brigade, 5th Infantry Battalion, and so they say, well, we're going to have a unit. Our campaign for the next 3 months is going to work in this province. Well, if you worked in it, you got a campaign medal. Well, when that campaign was over, then there was another one, and there'd be another. You were involved with a 2 or 3 month campaign in a different province. Maybe it was security of infiltration of Viet Cong on the west of Saigon or something like that. Well, so that's really what they were, and they're more of not an army citation, but I was with the Ninth Infantry Division and with the Third Brigade, and that's where the citation really originates from.
Okay. And when did you join the Special Forces?
I ended up in a hospital, and that was probably read that in the book there too. I ended up getting really sick. I don't know what I had. Came down with hepatitis, the one from drinking basically bad water, I guess they said. And anyway, I was pretty sick for a while in the hospital. And then when I came back, my platoon was changing up a little bit. It was an opportunity for me to give up the M60, and then one of my previous platoon leaders had started a special forces raider platoon, and there were a couple of buddies of mine that went to sniper school, and then they were in the special forces in that raider platoon, and he asked me if I'd be willing to put together a small squad of guys. There'd be about 5 of us, and we would support the special forces operations. We would still report to my company and my platoon, but whenever they needed us for support, um, then I would go with my support squad, and we assisted the snipers on special, and then that was my special forces operations. So
Okay. You served an extra term in the service, so your younger brother would not have to go to battle. I was really surprised at this because I had two brothers serve together at the same time. Uh, was this a normal practice or was it something special?
it was a normal practice. Yeah, it was quite normal. There was a lot of guys. That was always a general topic of conversation, and of guys that that we were. I went over as a replacement. All of us guys are replacements, and you serve with guys are replacements. So between guys coming and going or getting wounded and going home or whatever, there's always a constant movement. And anyway, that was always a general conversation all the time. So if somebody who was getting to be a short timer, he says it was called the 180-day early out program. It wasn't serving a second tour, just 180-day early out. If
Okay.
you if your duty over there was within 180 days of you getting out of the service, you could get out. So a lot of guys would extend as many days as it took to be within 180 days, and they wouldn't have to serve 5 months stateside. So, and then with me, I did it because my brother was kind of dragging his feet, and they were holding him over, and so that's what I did. I extended. Well, that just they couldn't hold him for 4 months, which basically um, I don't know. I had 2 months to extend. He was already out 2, and they weren't going to extend him another 2, so that forced orders for him to go to Germany. So, and I just did the unfortunate part of not unfortunate part about that, Luann, is this was I went over in June first, the beginning of the monsoon. I went through the whole monsoon season, so I extended from June into July. I mean, instead of going home early June, well, that's in 1969. is when we had the Cambodian campaign, and that's when we went into Cambodia when Nixon, we were going to go in on the Cambodian Trail. So that last month there, I goes, oh shoot, of all the luck. But anyway, it didn't turn out to be as bad as operation as I thought it would be. And anyway, I made it out and actually flew out of a fire base right outside of the Cambodian border to the 25th Infantry Division, and then from there down to the 9th Division. And so I got my orders to go home.
But your brother did serve in Germany. So, okay.
Yeah, he served in Germany. Yeah, so yeah.
Okay. Okay. How was your welcome when you come back to the States? Were you received open arms?
Certainly not. Certainly not open arms by any means. And we were told uh, when I zeroed out of Oakland, California, and they said that you could expect, expect problems at the airport or various places, but it never really transpired. Um, and actually, the whole time that I was in uniform traveling home, my experience was just the opposite. I had a good experience. Nobody really, there was no nasty, no comments. Nobody really did anything that degrading or anything like that. And matter of fact, I went to the local bar and he said, "Hey, the drinks are on me. You're just coming home." He said, "Welcome home." And he says, "The drinks are on the house." And we had a nice chat. And so then when I did get home, that I was out of uniform. I did, so that was good. I mean, for what one day that I was in it, I had a good experience.
That's great,
So,
and that's the way it should be. But I know a lot of them were spit at
yeah.
and treated like a
I,
plague.
I will say though later on, I mean, even though you get home and then some people, the word would get out and say, well, he was, and one of the things that aggravated me then, and it still kind of does a little bit, is kind of the tone that people would say, okay, well, there's Fred, he's a Vietnam veteran or whatever, and they say, oh, he was in Nam, and they'd kind of use that term, and that kind of grated me. But yet, I just kind of let it go, and that's all it ever went, you know. And but um, I guess if that's all I had to deal with, that was probably pretty good, you know. So,
I don't know. I think it's sad the way our servicemen and women have been treated when they fight for our freedoms and then come back and
yeah.
get treated so badly. Um, you said you never wanted to talk about it when you were presented. Why?
Well, again, I felt nobody wanted to know. It was almost like, again, like I mentioned before, we were looked at as almost damaged goods. Say, oh, be quiet, don't mention that he was in Vietnam. Don't ask him any questions. We don't want to get him upset, or we don't want to, just we're kind of delicate, damaged goods, And nobody asked any questions. My dad was petrified of me and didn't know why. My girlfriend was petrified of me, and that's the story in there too in the book. And I don't know why. I think I look back on it. I didn't think my transition was that difficult, but obviously it was. But I don't know what would precipitate people in their mind to think that I was, they couldn't ask any questions. So that's kind of what happened. And anyway, we finally, we finally, nobody asked. I didn't say anything. And then just like I said, sitting down with World War II guys, and Korean guys, and that kind of motivated me. They suggested, well, you should write a book, and that's kind of what
That's what I was
motivated
going
me
to
to do
ask.
it.
What motivated you now?
Yeah, yeah. And my family, they didn't know anything about me. I mentioned I had a surprise birthday party with my wife, and nobody knew anything about it. And I wore, in the book, it's kind of a religious book, but I wore a rosary, and I still have that rosary. It's still on display with my dog tags. they started asking questions, what's that all about, So I started telling them, and they were said, oh my goodness, and then probably the third thing too, my youngest grandson was a month old, and that kind of makes you look at things different. So,
I
so
think it's important to leave.
decided to write it.
I think it's an important legacy to leave. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so are there more books in the making now, or
No, no. People ask me that. I've
nope?
had that. And people said they said that a lot of them say, well, why did they really? I mean, I'll have to say I've got a 5 stars. I just got a 5-star rating from the Sisters of Saint Francis. Would you believe that? And
Oh,
I've got a
wow, that's
five-star
wonderful.
from everybody. They said it's just this. Yeah, they said it's just a book that finally nails it. But they said that too. They said they wish I would have kept on writing, or said I should write another one. But I'm done. This one was it. This one was my shot at it, and if it really helps guys, and that's really what I wanted to do,
Okay,
and it
I have
seems
to
to
ask,
spark.
excuse me, I have to ask you though. Uh, I can't say the title out loud, but okay,
I
okay.
know.
Why, what
Yeah,
brought that, why did you come up with that title?
yeah. That title kind of came up as you probably read in the book. You got to read the book probably to um, understand the okay part. And like I said, it's a kind of a religious book, and a lot of the guys that I just talked to in conversation said that mentioned that that's what he's. Oh God, he said it's perfect. He said it's perfect. He says so. That's kind of what I went with, and for the simple fact that holy compost, whatever, uh,
Holy
really
doo
kind of
doo.
has a yeah, it has a religious, yet it was still kind of I really wanted to go into the physical part, the emotional, and of course kind of the religious end of it too. And we were, I was there at the very unfortunately at the very beginning of the month, really in the crap, soon season, and so I wrote a lot about the mud and the insects and the animals and rats and snakes and all that good stuff.
I can't even imagine. I'd be
So it was
horrified. So.
so it was kind of the a holy it.
Okay, is there any final word you'd like to add before we sign off?
Well, I think again, you and I are having a conversation before, and I'm working kind of supporting a lot of people initiative uh, with guys that are coming back from the Mid East that have served 2, 3, 4 tours, and they're dealing with a lot of things when they come home. I just can't imagine the baggage that they're dealing with, and they end up hurting themselves, whatever, and it's tough for them to. You can't just say you need to get help or need to talk to somebody that But it's my concern is to somehow make it advantageous for them to come in to talk to maybe even young veterans or young recruits, and that's kind of what my initiative is what it is, and what it is going to be down the road.
That's very good. Well, thank you so much for interviewing with me today, and we encourage everyone to read Okay, okay, and we will not finish the title. You have to look online to find out what it is.
Yeah.
I will have we are doing a generous giveaway, and we will have the media and different follow links that we need to follow our author here. Thank you, Fred.
Okay. Well, thank you. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Same here. Bye-bye.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.